She's the founder of Wellness Me, a UK-based holistic wellness basis practice. She also holds an MSc in sustainability and environmental management. She will talk about setting boundaries to protect yourself. As we all know that in any situation, everyone needs to set boundaries. So let's see how.
Thank you, Anushka, for introducing me. And thank you for all the people who have joined today and taken the time on your day off to be here. What I'll be discussing in the next 20 minutes is about setting boundaries, personal boundaries, knowing how we move from a place where you find somebody who is either crossing their boundaries towards you or you crossing your boundaries, and where you can gently move to saying, stop, this is my boundary, this is private, and it's not for public information. So this is what we'll be discussing in the next 20 minutes. So the purpose of this session today is to understand how to set personal boundaries and to gently stand your ground. The topics that we will cover is defining personal boundaries, describing different types of personal boundaries, effectively setting up personal boundaries, managing, because once you set up these boundaries, you need to know how to manage and maintain the personal boundaries. And usually you find when somebody has crossed your boundaries, it sort of puts you in a place of stress and anxiety. And we'll learn how to manage that stress and anxiety. Also, the other thing is, as a mindfulness teacher, I've always learned that mindfulness practices, simple practices of mindfulness, can help you manage stress and anxiety. So we'll see how that works out, and then I'll take any Q&A during, if there is any time left, take some Q&A questions. We move on. First of all, before we go on to the details, I would like to say one of the best things to do is to respect yourself. And when you respect yourself, you understand and you set your own personal boundaries. And when you respect yourself, you protect and take care of yourself. And when you do that, you automatically respect others and you set those boundaries, and you don't cross other people's boundaries, which is quite equally important. In addition to maintaining your own boundaries, it's how you maintain yours and how you come across to other people. It sets a standard and it lets them know that this is how you would expect them to behave towards you. So always remember, respect yourself and respect others. We move on to seeing how we can define personal boundaries. First of all, you need to know what is a boundary. And then we'll see what personal boundaries are. Boundary is basically a line, a limit that marks an area, a dividing line between you and somebody else. Like countries have boundaries, borders. When you go into another country, you have to get a visa, you have to process all these documents before you go in. Similarly, personal boundaries are about setting limits between you and others. It lets others know what behavior you expect from others, how they should behave towards you, and it also lets them know this is how you behave towards them. And it has to be vice versa. You should treat people with respect just because you expect others to treat you with respect. It's important to have healthy boundaries, and identifying and setting some for yourself. It's a space between you. It also provides a safe space for you, so that you don't let other people cross over it. This is all fine, knowing what personal boundaries are, and defining what personal boundaries are. But it's just, personal boundaries is not about just one aspect of it. We have 5 aspects of personal boundaries. We look at the physical, sexual, intellectual, emotional, and financial. So there are 5 boundaries that we need to usually set and define for ourselves. When we talk about physical boundaries, which is quite easy to understand, it is physical, it is our personal space, the space that we have, how close we let somebody to, you know, stand next to us. These days it is 2 meters, but of course, when COVID is finished, it is usually we find sometimes people standing too close to us, which makes us feel comfortable. And sometimes it's not safe to have somebody stand so close to you. So it's a personal space that we are talking about. It's also about how comfortable you are when you express PDAs, public display of affections, how close you can stand to a people. Some people are okay with PDAs and some people are not. So you need to respect that. You need to understand how the other person also, um, how they like it, how close they would prefer you standing to them. And you need to always start out by giving space. Then we move on to something that's the sexual boundary. This is referred in the sexual context when somebody touches you or talks to you about things that make you feel uncomfortable. This is something that you need to take into consideration as well. Then we come to the intellectual boundaries. This refers to where your thoughts and beliefs, because in a global world, each person has their own thoughts and own belief systems. My belief system is different to yours. Each of us have been brought up with different belief system based on our cultures, our traditions, um, and our own friend group, I would suppose. This affects the way we think and we see the world. We have to learn to set these intellectual boundaries so that we respect not only your own boundaries but also other people's ideas and opinions of what they think and how they see the world. We move on to something called the next is the emotional boundaries. Emotional boundaries refers when some people are quite comfortable when they're with their friends to express, tell them everything, whatever is on their mind. They find it quite easy to talk about, whereas some people don't find it easy to share. Just because somebody doesn't share their feelings with you or express the feelings the way you think they should be expressing doesn't mean they don't want to be your friend or be open to it and open to your friendship. You have to always respect it. Emotional boundary. Then we go on to financial boundaries. This is how people choose to spend money. Some people save money, some people spend money. Just because you learn to spend money, save money, it doesn't mean you're being stingy. It might be that the person has different priorities in life, um, and they have different ways of how they want to spend their money. You might want to spend it on clothes, being trendy, whereas the other person might find it easier to spend it on buying books and learning and gaining knowledge. Just because their views of spending money is different to yours, uh, doesn't make them any less cool than you are. So you need to identify, by identifying what you are comfortable spending on and what your priorities are. You will understand what other people's priorities are, and you will respect that, um, on where you choose to spend your money. This is something quite important, because in a day and age where there is so much of peer pressure to look trendy and cool, um, I suppose you have to always know what it is in your life that you want and where you want to be, and where that money will take you further in life compared to being part of the group. Nobody is saying don't be a part of the group, but know your limits within that group. Know what financially you're capable of supporting within, you know, and being part of that group. Having learned all this, those were the different types of, um, boundaries that we set. So once you identify and understand those boundaries, we have to look at how effectively we set these boundaries up, um, and maintain them. So here we look, knowing your boundaries. First of all, you need to know what your boundaries are. Um, it's fine knowing there are 5 boundaries, but you need to know what your personal preferences are, what you would prefer, how you would prefer people behaving towards you. So understand that, know it, know yourself, and knowing what it is will actually reduce the stress, you know, and brings a well-being within you, saying, okay, this is what makes me comfortable. If somebody doesn't, if somebody oversteps these boundaries, you know how to react, and you know how you identify that, okay, this is my personal boundary, and this is what you are the way you're behaving towards me makes me uncomfortable. So first of all, before you do anything, you need to know if something is causing you stress and anxiety and is harmful for your well-being. It's not healthy, and that means it's not within you've not yet grown to a place where you can let other people come and, where you're ready to share things. Sometimes it happens that you're not aware of what your boundaries are still, especially as a young person. You're still learning and understanding the world around you. So you need to investigate, become a detective in yourself. If you can start out with something small, you know like we said, I mean, I use this as a simple example. Just try to know what distance you prefer people standing close to you, or what kind of information you like to give people. These are the things. You might have one person that you'd prefer telling, sharing your personal emotions with, and you don't like to share it with everybody else. So this is something you need to understand, you need to investigate. So become a detective and see how you feel when somebody stands too close to you, and what is appropriate distance for you. This is just the physical one we are talking. Similarly, it goes to all the emotional, the financial, the intellectual. Take each, the 5 aspects that we talked about, take one part of each, and try and understand it. Then we go on to determining. Once you have determined what it is always very, very important that you communicate. It is never too late to set boundaries. And the thing is, as your knowledge and awareness grows about yourself, and you realize something that was okay today, it might not be okay tomorrow. But be comfortable to let the people around you know that, it has changed, so that they also know what it is, and things. But just ensure you don't change it on a daily basis. It has to be consistent. So you have to determine your personal boundaries and let people know this is the way you can, and this is one of the ways you can change your pre-existing unhealthy boundaries. Communicating your boundaries is important. It can always be done in a polite and kind manner. If you find yourself being bullied or pressurized to do something that you're not comfortable, then let them know by saying, I feel threatened and uncomfortable by your actions or behavior, and can you please stop it. And also let a teacher or a family member know, or someone know, that somebody's action has made you feel unsafe, or you're being bullied and pressurized. It's always important to talk about it. You can't stress enough. I think in the previous presentation as well, it was said that find somebody who you can talk to. Never be intimidated to talk to somebody, and let them know how you're feeling. The other thing that we look at is in social media boundaries. Social media boundaries are blurred lines. In a physical setting, you can tell people to stay away, whereas in social media you have your information out there for anybody to see. So you should, in a way, you should cultivate your image on social media in such a way. Similarly, set a boundary on social media. Try not to share too much information, or information other people wouldn't want other people to know about you. And if you find somebody crossing your boundaries, the best way is you can either block them, which is easy these days, or report them. The other way is also to check your private settings in your Facebook account. What posts you would put it as public, or what posts you would have it as private settings, where you just share it between your friends within the group. It's important. The best way is naturally not to share personal information, too much personal information on social media. uh, and that sets a boundary within. If you find that friends are posting pictures of you that you do not like and you're not comfortable with, then ask them not to post it, or ask them to crop you out of the picture or blur the picture, which is, if they are your friend, they will respect that. The next is, identify somebody to speak to. Always have somebody in your group, a teacher, a parent, a family member, someone who makes you feel safe and who can guide you on how to manage when you find yourself in difficult situations, or with people. When you find somebody when you come across a situation where somebody has crossed your boundaries, and you are not familiar on how to respond to it, go and speak to somebody. And that could be a, mom, dad, your teacher, your siblings, uncle and aunt, somebody who you trust, and somebody who you can speak to freely and you feel comfortable speaking to about things that are uncomfortable. It's always important to have that. Then we go on to knowing the difference. One of the things is knowing the difference between what is healthy and unhealthy boundaries. So, the types of boundaries, the five that we talked, again, healthy ones is maintaining a personal space. Unhealthy is standing too close, obsessed with self-image and constantly posting pictures of your private life on Facebook or Insta. Hitting, pushing, kicking. We do this sometimes for fun with friends, but we don't realize that actually this is unsafe. This is somewhere you're crossing the boundary. So before you do that, just take a step back and see, am I doing something where I'm crossing my boundary with somebody else? And if you feel, just hold back. Just it might be a friendly banter where you're kicking somebody, but sometimes some people are not comfortable with it, so you need to understand that. And that actually, when you understand people, these small details with your friends, you actually, your friendship blossoms more, and you get to be good friends. uh, the other one is the sexual boundary, not letting others touching you inappropriately. Okay, that is a healthy boundary. The unhealthy is when an adult has an inappropriate physical contact with a young person, or they ask you to see images that are inappropriate. These are not healthy boundaries, and you have to, in these situations, speak to somebody who you confide in, and say, this is what is happening. Always speak to somebody. These are things that make people quite uncomfortable at times, but it is, as we are learning, you have to set up these boundaries, and you have to identify this network of people who you can rely on and go and speak to easily. Intellectual is respecting your own and other people's viewpoints. We live in a global world. We listen to different people's thoughts and different people's opinions. Just because somebody has an opinion that is different to yours doesn't mean it is wrong. you know it your opinions and your thoughts are based on the belief system that you have been brought up with, and because of the culture and the traditions that you follow. Just because you follow a tradition and a culture which is different to others, which has a different opinion, where you as your group of family members has a different opinion compared to others, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It's wrong when you start dismissing and calling them names, and when you start criticizing, and when you don't respect their views. That is an unhealthy boundary. Emotional is expressing emotions in a balanced way, being kind and compassionate. This is important. When you're kind and compassionate, you everything falls into place automatically. You're kind in your words, you know how to behave towards yourself as well as others. um, the unhealthy part, of course, is where you over exaggerate things, and when you draw attention to yourself unduly. That is crying wolf. Sometimes you have to hold on to you have to curb your enthusiasm on expressing your emotions. Financially, again, is living within your means, knowing what your priorities in lives are, and putting money towards what is important to you, like we discussed previously. And then the unhealthy one is living outside your means, overspending, spending on things you can't afford, or asking your parents to spend on things that they at this point in time can't afford, because there are other priorities in their life as well. So you need to take that into consideration. Moving on from this, we go on to see how we manage and maintain these personal boundaries that we have discussed. So sorry, um, so you always stay within your boundaries. Once you staying within your boundaries, being consistent, once you set your personal boundaries, and once you have let everybody know, like we said, you have to stay within it. Because if you keep changing your boundaries, that will confuse people. um, at the same time, identify and respect other people's boundaries, and behave in the same way. Don't change it every day. Things will change, like we discussed, with your knowledge and your information, but don't change it on an everyday. Don't say one person can behave like this towards me and the other person can't. Be consistent in the way you are doing. And most of all, when you have to turn back people who are asking you to cross your boundaries, you have to be assertive. And being assertive is not being firm, and assertive is, you can do it gently. You don't have to scream and shout. If someone gets you to cross your boundaries, communicate to them that their actions or their words are making you feel uncomfortable, or what they're asking you to act or behave is in a manner that is not comfortable with you, and that they are overstepping their boundaries with you, and or they're asking you to cross your boundaries which you're not comfortable. In this case, you can be assertive. By being assertive, it's a kind of confidence and being firm, and that is in your speech, the way you sit up when you're communicating to them. Ensure you stand up or sit up straight, and your back and your shoulder is um, straight, not slouched, so that, and you can look into their eyes when you're saying it. And that's the kind of confidence that gives, that shows the visually, it gives them the impression that you are confident in what you're saying, and when you're saying it, that you mean business. And that will let them stand back. And it is always, it's not necessary when you do it this way. It's not necessary for you to get into an argument or a fight. When you stand your ground, and when you look at somebody in their eyes and tell them, no, stop, this is not right, that will communicate to them. Also, it is best to be done then and there, instead of letting it just go on, or within 24 hours. you know um, and that gives you, the reason I say 24 hours is it gives you time to go and speak to somebody as well, and tell them this is what has happened. But ensure that you tell the other person, whoever has made you feel uncomfortable or asked you to cross over your boundaries, to then and there to stop it, which is always a good way to do it. And like we said, always identify your confidant, a person who you can speak to, a person who you can speak to, and let them know. Having done all of this, it's quite easy now when I'm mentioning all this to you, but when it is happening, actually it can be stressful. you know it 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 can be stressful in that moment, and it might last for a couple of days or months of being stressful, because sometimes these are your close friends, and you don't know how to react to them. So how do you manage this stress? You can maintain a journal where you write down things, your thoughts. Sometimes when you write down things, it helps things let go and calms you down. um, Daily exercises, stresses, when you exercise daily, it is very good. Stressful, it reduces stress. um, Cultivate a hobby. um, a hobby is something that's good. In this day and age of information technology, we have sort of forgotten about the simple things like gardening, arts and craft, which is quite helpful. Then you can practice, the drawing is one of the other things which is good as well. And the other practice is meditation and being mindful. Mindfulness and meditation is very helpful to relax stress and anxiety. Commit about 10 minutes each day, to a mindfulness or a meditation practice. At this time, I just want to ask Anushka, do we have time for a short meditation, Anushka?
Yes, we do.
We do? Okay, thank you. Um, can I ask everybody just to demonstrate how easy.
Excuse me, ma'am, you're on mute.
Sorry, is it okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so yeah, I'll just carry this. We'll just do a short meditation. Wherever you're sitting or and listening to this, if you can just gently close your eyes and bring your awareness to your breath, and notice where you feel the rising and falling sensation of the breath. This could be your stomach or your chest. We start with breathing through our nose and breathing out through our mouth. As we breathe in, we mentally count 1, and as we breathe out, we count 2. You can count to an upward of 10 like this. So as you breathe in next, 3, and as you breathe out, 4. If you miss a number, no problem. Just go back to counting 1. Now gently, you can open your eyes. So this meditation that we did is just been 2 or 3 minutes. This is a simple thing which we can do every day in our um, we can make it a part of our daily exercise. And just the last slide, I would say, here is the benefits of what mindfulness can do. um, Most of all, it reduces stress and anxiety, especially during your exam times. So these are some of the benefits. And it is this is personal boundaries. It is, you might be different to the surroundings that there is, but you are the one who adorns the landscape. You are different to other people. You are not same as the others, but respect who you are and what you are, and that will help you set your boundaries. So I hope we've been through this process. I know it's been 20 minutes and it's been fast. I hope it's been helpful. And I'm ready
Thank you
for
so
any
much.
question. Thank you,
Those were great
Anushka.
points, and we have some questions.
Oh,
One question is that is setting boundaries a teamwork or do we do it alone?
I think for me personally, I think you'd start out by yourself, because you need to know yourself. In a team, sometimes it's good, but start out knowing yourself first. And once you know what your uh, boundaries are, maybe you can discuss in a group or with friends and as a teamwork, or understand if you're struggling. Yeah, I would say, yeah, go with the teamwork. But if you're able to do it yourself in the beginning, do it yourself. Like, that gives you a clear understanding, so that it doesn't you're not influenced by other people's boundaries as such, because boundaries are personal to each person. That is what I would say.
Yeah, okay. And I think one last question is that can you share some examples to demonstrate a case where a boundary is set?
A case of a boundary being set. um I think it's simple for me. It's intellectual boundary. If you want to take, I have my own belief systems, based on being an Indian and being raised as an Indian, and knowing what my culture and my traditions expect of me. You know, um, so I have my thoughts. Like, we always respect our elders. We don't um, we don't sort of answer back to them and things like that. Those are emotional, the way you respond to people. Those are sort of an um, I'm choosing my words carefully here. So we don't answer back to our elders and things like that. That is the boundary that was set within our group, as a culture when we are young. um, but it doesn't mean when somebody else from another culture, where it's more open, where you can reply back and tell them, this is not how they feel, is one of the things, where you reply back to your parents and say, I'm not comfortable with it. That is seen as rep- in olden days, where if I said that to my parents, that would have been, oh, that's not accepted. But that has changed now. So I have changed the way I had set my boundaries, and I'm looking at and expressing myself better to others. I think that is one of the things. I know it's not quite clear, but yeah, I hope it's understood.
No, it was good. Thank you so much, and it was a
Welcome.
great session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Meghna. Thank you,
Thank you.
Anushka. Really, Meghna, I mean, that was amazing,
Thank
and
you.
the little 2-minute meditation that you made us do, very relaxing. Thank you for joining us.